Alrighty, so technical exercise number 2 read that at a sales level of 10,000 units per month, the manufacturing overhead per unit is 4 Rand per unit. The next month, the price of all manufacturing costs increase by 5%. If the sales level increases by 4,000 units, the manufacturing overhead per unit 2 falls to 348. What is the variable manufacturing overhead per unit? So essentially the same example as technical exercise number 1. The biggest difference is that there is an extra 5% increase. So in other words, 1 month you have essentially activity at 10,000 units, 4 Rand a month. Then the next month there's an inflation which applies to all manufacturing costs. So this all is essentially trying to tell you that it applies to variable and fixed costs. In example 1, in technical exercise 1, we could do the high-low method by just essentially taking the cost for the one level minus the cost for the next level and the difference in activity. However, in example 2, we can't just do that upfront because of this 5% inflation. So what you have really is 1 month you have inflation, 1 month you have no inflation, and the next month you have inflation. So in other words, this table just summarizes what we have here. So month 1 you have variable costs plus fixed costs and no inflation, and month 2 you have variable costs plus fixed costs with inflation. So when you compare the 2 months to do a high-low, similar to technical exercise number 1, you cannot just do that off the bat because that's not apples with apples, because here you have no inflation and there you have inflation, and effectively the nature is different from month 1 to month 2, which is not apples with apples. So before you can do the high-low method, you first have to remove the inflation from month 2, because month 2 has the inflation. Once you remove the inflation from month 2, you effectively end up with having no inflation, and then you have apples with apples for which you can do the high-low. And so how you remove inflation? Well, inflation is essentially 1 plus a inflation. So in other words, if I have 100 Rand and inflation is 6%, it's 100 plus 6%, which is 106. So to reverse that inflation, I take the inflated amount, right, the total cost which is inflated, and I just reverse it by saying multiply by 1 over 1 plus inflation. Alright, so in this case, I'm going to take the month 2 costs and multiply it by 1 over 1.05. And so you can see if the denominator is higher than the numerator, you end up with a lower amount, which is what we want, because we want the amount before inflation, which will obviously be lower. Alright, so if we apply that, month 1, it is, okay, that's essentially month 1. We have 10,000 times 4 Rand per unit. Okay, just to remind you of the information. In month 1, 10,000 times 4 Rand per unit. Alright. Now month 2 is the 14,000 times 348. However, month 2 has the inflation which we need to reverse, and so therefore we're going to multiply by 1 divided by 1.05, because the 0.5 is 5%, so that comes to 0.05, and that gets divided by the difference in units. So remember, the principle here is difference in cost before inflation divided by difference in activity. So difference in cost before inflation, these amounts now will all be, if we apply the 1.05 over there, it will all be before inflation, and the difference in activity is the 14,000 minus the 10,000, and that gives you the 46,400 divided by less 40,000 divided by the 4,000 units, and that will give you 1 Rand 60 per unit, which is what the high-low method enables us to do. If we take the difference in cost, divide by the difference in units, we get the variable cost. So, big difference here between technical exercise 1 and exercise 2 is that there was inflation, and the minute you have inflation from 1 month to the next, you have to remove the inflation from the 1 month so that you can have apples with apples in order to calculate the variable cost per unit. Alright, so I hope that was helpful. Next video I will check back with to talk you through the solution of technical exercise 3. Awesome.